I fronted $5,600 for a project. When I submitted my expenses, they were gutted. I got $500 back. Faced with a $5,100 loss, I didn't scream. I didn't curse. I laughed. My boss sneered at me. See, so much better when you don't make a scene. Young people need to learn how to take a loss. I nodded in agreement, my gaze steady. 2 days later, an urgent, multi-million-dollar project required an immediate cross-country flight. The work order was assigned to me. I clicked, do not accept. The ticket was then pushed to the department's open pool. No one touched it. No one was stupid enough to gamble another $5,000 on the company's conscience. The finance director's call came quickly. She was frantic. That $5,100 from the other day. I'll approve the full amount right now. Just take the assignment. At 3 in the afternoon, the air in the finance office was thick enough to choke on. I walked in and placed a thick stack of receipts carefully on Ms. Finch's desk. That stack of paper represented 2 weeks of running myself ragged and a full month's salary. $5,600. It was all money I had fronted for the company's urgent project Sirius. Ms. Finch, a woman in her 40s with a face devoid of expression, wore a pair of gold-rimmed glasses. Behind the lenses, her eyes were like two cold, polished stones. She picked up the receipts and flicked through them, the crisp rustle of paper sounding like a mockery of my naivete. Her expression shifted from procedural scrutiny to undisguised impatience. Leo, are you new here? She asked without looking up. Ms. Finch, I've been with the company for a year, I replied calmly. She snorted, pulling out a hotel receipt. This is over the limit. Company policy states that standard employees on business travel have a lodging cap of $300 per night. But the situation was urgent. There was a major convention in Stanton City, and every hotel under 300 was booked solid. I cleared this with Mr. Davis before I left. He approved it. I pulled a printed email from my folder, an internal approval request, and slid it in front of her. It clearly stated I was requesting an exception for real cost reimbursement due to special circumstances. Mr. Davis was CC'd. He hadn't replied to the email, but he told me over the phone, no problem, the project is the priority. Get it done. Ms. Finch glanced at the email, a disdainful smirk playing on her lips. Verbal approval? She let out a dry, grating laugh. Verbal approvals don't count. It's policy. Right in front of me, with a crisp, deliberate rip, she tore my copy of the hotel receipt in two and tossed the pieces into the trash can by her feet. My heart felt like it had been ripped in half along with it. She continued her review, a red pen striking through every receipt she deemed non-compliant. A dinner with the client, over budget. A car service I took to make a deadline, non-compliant. Why didn't you take the subway? An invoice for emergency replacement parts. Purchasing protocol wasn't followed beforehand. Denied. I could feel the blood draining from my face. The arguments died in my throat because, through the glass wall of the finance office, I could see my direct supervisor, Mr. Davis, sitting in his plush executive chair, casually sipping tea. He saw me. He saw what Ms. Finch was doing. He simply raised an eyebrow and did nothing. Ms. Finch, I said, my voice tight, these were all necessary expenses to ensure the project's success. Every single one is documented. Your documentation is irrelevant. Company policy is what matters. She finally stopped, tapping furiously at her calculator. At last, she scribbled a number on the reimbursement form and pushed it toward me. Approved amount, $500. The number felt like a dagger in my eye. Out of $5,600, I was getting back $500. A sharp pain bloomed in my chest, as if I'd been hit with a sledgehammer. $5,100. That was a month and a half of my rent and living expenses. It was savings I had scraped together. Gone. This is unreasonable, I said, my voice hoarse. I want to speak with Mr. Davis. Ms. Finch leaned back, crossing her arms with the smug look of a spectator at a gladiator match. She picked up her desk phone and dialed his office. Mr. Davis, Leo has an issue with the approved amount. I stared through the glass as Davis put down his teacup. He didn't even bother to walk over. He picked up his phone, and his cold, oily voice drifted from the receiver, just loud enough for me to hear. Leo, just do as finance says. Times are tough for the company. We all need to show a little dedication. Dedication? I thought with a humorless sneer. Was my dedication supposed to be funding the company out of my own pocket? I looked at the flimsy approval form, my mind racing, calculating the devastating impact this would have on my life. I also saw, with perfect clarity, the shameless face of the company I worked for. There was no shouting, no pleading. I took a deep breath, picked up the pen, and signed my name on that humiliating document, Leo. Ms. Finch's face broke into the condescending smile of a victor. She probably thought she had just broken another naive kid. Satisfied, Mr. Davis hung up and strolled out of his office. He walked over to me and clapped me on the shoulder with a hand that was both greasy and adorned with a gold watch. See, so much better when you don't make a scene, he said, his voice oozing with the false wisdom of a mentor. Young people need to learn that taking a loss is good for character. His eyes, however, held nothing but contempt. It was as if I weren't a key employee who generated value for him, but a beggar he could dismiss at will. I felt the muscles in my shoulder tense, the urge to throw his hand off me screaming against the bars of my self-control. But I didn't. I didn't even curse. I looked up at Mr. Davis's smug face, and a strange thing happened. I smiled. It was a perfectly calm, almost pleasant smile. A laugh escaped my lips. It was quiet, but it was cold, utterly devoid of warmth, like frost crystallizing on a windowpane. Both Davis and Finch stared, momentarily baffled by my reaction. Without another glance, I turned and walked out of the finance office, their low murmurs and Davis's triumphant chuckle following me. I knew they interpreted my laugh as the breaking point of humiliation, the final surrender after a powerless rage. They were wrong. This wasn't the end. It was the beginning. Back at my desk, the atmosphere in the department was tense. My colleagues shot me looks of sympathy, pity, and for some, a touch of morbid curiosity. Davis, never one to miss a chance to make an example of someone, paraded around the office with his teacup. "This is how it is with the younger generation," he announced to the room. "You have to knock them down a peg or two before they learn their place. Look at Leo, so cooperative. One word from me, and the matter was settled. You should all learn from this. Don't sweat the small stuff with the company. Think about the big picture." A few of the guys who usually called me a friend chimed in with agreement, becoming his instant yes men. I stared at my monitor, my fingers flying across the keyboard, acting as if I were in a world of my own. During the afternoon coffee break, Sarah, a junior assistant on the project team, quietly placed a mug on my desk. She was a recent graduate, her eyes still clear and unmarred by the cynicism of the corporate world. "Leo," she whispered, her voice full of genuine concern. "They really screwed you over. Davis and Finch went too far." She added, "Be careful on your next trip. Always ask for an advance." I looked up and offered her a reassuring smile. "Thanks, Sarah. I'm fine." And I was. The anger and humiliation had been compressed and sealed away the moment I signed my name, transformed into a colder, more potent kind of fuel. I wasn't wallowing in my loss. I was doing something far more important, taking inventory of my leverage. My fingers flew as I navigated the company's project management system, pulling up the schedule for the next 3 days. One project code, bold and red, caught my eye: Project Aegis. It was an urgent, multi-million-dollar contract with an industry titan. The terms included strict deadlines and crippling penalties for failure. The core technical bottleneck of Project Aegis was an encryption algorithm I had single-handedly developed. The on-site equipment debugging and code implementation had to be done by me. I, Leo, was the only person in the entire company who could solve any sudden issues with this algorithm, remotely or on-site, within 48 hours. I, the cooperative, young man Davis thought he could handle with a single glance, was the irreplaceable heart of Project Aegis. Next, I reviewed the company's ticketing system. The rules were clear. Urgent tasks were assigned directly to the key stakeholder. Once assigned, the ticket was locked. It couldn't be reassigned unless the designated person refused it. The penalty for refusal? A single, performance warning, in your file. I looked at that penalty and laughed. For a multi-million-dollar project whose failure could get a regional director fired, a performance warning was a joke. My cold laugh hadn't been one of surrender. In that moment, I had confirmed two stark realities. First, this company and my boss would, for a mere $5,100, crush a key employee's loyalty without a second thought. Second, they had gravely, almost stupidly, underestimated my true value. That evening, I stayed late. I quietly organized all my personal work notes, debug logs, and conceptual frameworks related to Project Aegis, nothing that constituted a core company secret. Then, I wrote a simple script and set up a timed email. If I chose to push the button, all of it would be sent to my personal address. It was a contingency plan. If the company chose to burn everything down, would have the proof of my work and expertise to pave the way for my next job. After I was done, I went to get some water. As I passed Davis's office, I could hear him laughing on the phone with a client, his voice full of swagger, as if his $5,100 victory had put him in a particularly fine mood. I watched his bloated silhouette and calmly did the math. A cash loss of $5,100, plus an immeasurable dose of personal humiliation. To balance that equation, it would take a multi-million-dollar project and the career of a regional director. Just then, my phone buzzed. A message in the workgroup chat. It was Ms. Finch, and she had tagged me specifically. "At Leo, the $500 reimbursement you applied for this afternoon has been processed. Please confirm receipt." She followed it up by tagging everyone. A reminder to all staff: please ensure all expense reports strictly adhere to company financial policy. Leo has confirmed and accepted the outcome of this review. We hope you will all learn from this example. It wasn't enough to take my money. She had to use me as a cautionary tale, to publicly crucify me and cement my reputation as a pushover. The chat was silent. No one dared to speak. I looked at the screen, my fingers tapping lightly on my phone. A few seconds later, my reply appeared. "Received. Thanks for the company's consideration." Those words landed like a drop of water in a sizzling pan of oil. Seemingly calm, but containing the promise of a violent explosion. Sarah immediately sent me a private message, a single, face-palming emoji. I didn't reply. My patience was the calm before the storm. Now, all I needed was for the wind to blow. And I knew it would, very soon. The wind began to blow exactly when I predicted. The next day at 4:30 p.m., just an hour before quitting time, a piercing red alert erupted from the company's work order system. It sounded like an air raid siren, shattering the office's drowsy peace. A massive, blood-red pop-up dominated every screen. Urgent task: Project Aegis core algorithm on-site debug. Location: Stanton City. Deadline: 48 hours. Project value: $12 million. Assigned to Leo. My name was lit up like it was on a Broadway marquee. Davis's office door flew open. His face was a mask of tense excitement as he strode toward my desk. "Leo, you see this? Project Aegis just got fast-tracked. The client's equipment is down. You need to get on a flight immediately." His voice was a booming command. In the project group chat, messages were flying. "Davis at Leo, accept the ticket. Now, this is a top priority mission." The air in the office went still. I calmly looked at the pop-up. Below my name were two large buttons, a green, accept, and a red, do not accept. A 60-second countdown was ticking away above the red button. Those ticking numbers weren't just seconds. They were Davis's bonus, the company's profit, and the rapidly increasing risk of a $12 million failure. My hand hovered over the mouse. I savored the moment, the feeling of holding everyone's fate, including that of the man who had just humiliated me, at my fingertips. "Leo, what are you waiting for? Move it." Davis's voice was turning ragged with anxiety. He leaned so close I could smell the stale coffee and nicotine on his breath. I turned my head slightly. Then, as Davis and the entire office watched, my cursor moved with unshakable certainty to the red button. Click. I pressed, do not accept. Time seemed to freeze. The expression on Davis's face cycled through confusion, disbelief, and finally, a deep, puce-colored rage. A warning window appeared. You are rejecting a level SSS urgent task. This action will be logged and will severely impact your annual performance review. Are you sure? Without hesitation, I clicked confirm. The work order was instantly kicked back into the system and broadcast to everyone in the project group. A chorus of notification chimes echoed through the office. The ticket status changed from assigned to Leo to open task. And in the ticket's history, the first entry was a line of glaring red text. Task rejected by assigned user Leo. The office was dead silent. Everyone stared at me like I had lost my mind. A few seconds later, something even more dramatic happened. Another chime. Task rejected by assigned user Mark. Then another. Task rejected by assigned user Jessica. Task rejected by assigned user David. The ticket was a hot potato, being tossed around the department with no one willing to catch it. No one was a fool. Yesterday, I had charged into battle for the company and had come back with a $5,100 personal loss and a public shaming. Today, with a high-stakes, high-cost, high-risk project on the table, who would be willing to gamble their own money on the company's integrity? My refusal was a bomb that had detonated the company's facade of corporate camaraderie, exposing the bloody reality underneath. Davis's face was the color of raw liver, a vein throbbing in his temple. His phone buzzed furiously with notifications from the group chat. He glanced at it, then quickly sent me a direct message. Davis, Leo, are you out of your goddamn mind? Do you have any idea what you're doing? Accept the ticket right now. I could feel his apoplectic rage through the screen. I picked up my phone and slowly typed my reply. Leo, Mr. Davis, my apologies. Leo, as you taught me yesterday, young people need to learn that taking a loss is good for character. I find your advice very insightful and feel I need some time to truly appreciate this character-building experience. Leo, furthermore, the expenses for this trip will certainly be substantial. As someone who just took a loss of $5,100, I simply cannot afford the risk of another financial write-off. On his end, the typing indicator appeared and disappeared several times, but no message came through. He was probably too furious to form words. He looked up and roared at the entire office. Some people better not get arrogant just because they have a little technical skill. This is deliberate sabotage. If this project is delayed, none of you will be able to bear the responsibility. His voice echoed, full of bluster and impotence. No one responded. The red ticket hung in the queue, a digital pariah. Each rejection notification was another slap across the face of Davis and the company's management. I leaned back in my chair, took a sip of the now cold coffee Sarah had given me, and savored the bitter taste. A strange, almost sick sense of satisfaction washed over me. The show was just getting started. On my wedding night, I joyfully lift the veil, only to discover that my bride has been replaced with the dim-witted daughter of my girlfriend's helper. The laughter surrounding me grows louder. My girlfriend's male best friend gloatingly says, according to tradition, you must spend a night with her, Mr. Leeds. I'll take one for the team and keep Carol company tonight instead. Just then, my girlfriend strolls in leisurely. It's just a joke. Don't be a sore loser. Besides, she's a complete ignoramus. Spending the night with her won't hurt you. Seeing her sarcastic expression, I laugh. Now that I've lifted the veil, how can one night be enough? Since I did it, I'll take responsibility for life. The groomsmen were stunned. They were here to play pranks on the engaged couple as was custom, but the scene they witnessed made them pause. You really have some nerve, Carol, making Justin Leeds spend his wedding night with some halfwit, said one. Today's your big day. Even jokes have their limits, surely. Carol Barnes arched a brow impassively. What's it to you? As his fiancée, I don't mind. What's he got to feel bad for? She walked up to me as she spoke, her tone menacing. You made Caleb look like a complete idiot in front of everyone, even docking his bonus for half a year. I'm getting even. Either spend a night with the halfwit, or this marriage is off. Rather than feeling angry, I was reeling from how absurd the situation was. Last month, Caleb Smith, my assistant, accompanied me to an auction. However, he threw all my instructions out the window and started waving the paddle wildly. This resulted in my company acquiring the collection at a price much higher than the intended budget. After that, I acted according to company policy and pursued disciplinary action. Word of the incident spread like wildfire, which gave everyone ammunition to gossip about Caleb. If Caleb hadn't ignored my instructions, I wouldn't have wasted hundreds of thousands for nothing. According to company policy, Caleb should have been fired. I merely docked his bonus for half a year, which was already lenient enough, for Carol's sake. However, Carol stubbornly insisted that I was nitpicking by using that incident as an excuse to embarrass Caleb. I tried to explain, but she refused to listen, thinking I was cold and heartless. She forced me to stand in the lobby all night. Only after I wrote a lengthy apology letter to Caleb did she reluctantly let it slide. I thought the issue was long put to rest, but I never imagined this would happen today. This made my heart freeze over completely. Carol went as far as to orchestrate this farce on her wedding day just to get back at me on Caleb's behalf. It was easy to imagine the rumors that would spread after tonight. How many were going to ridicule me after this? Based on her behavior, Carol clearly assumed I loved her deeply and would not defy her. She was utterly convinced that even if there was a flaming pit before me, I'd have jumped into it willingly for her. Yet, she did not realize that even the most ardent love could not withstand such reckless misdeeds. I let out a muffled grunt, turning away from them. Instead, I got down on one knee before the lady who was mindlessly munching on candy. I took her hand and looked up at her, asking, Layla Higgins, will you marry me? Carol's eyes widened in shock when I spoke. Justin Leeds, have you gone insane? I asked you to spend a night with her in the wedding suite. Do you really want to marry this halfwit? She exclaimed. Caleb quickly grabbed her arm. Calm down, Carol, he whispered urgently. How could he marry someone like that? He's just trying to goad you into backing down. If you lose it now, you'll fall right into his trap. Carol only stopped in her tracks when she heard Caleb's words, and a faint smile played at the corners of her lips. Remember to swap out that wedding ring before seeing me tomorrow, Justin, she said. I don't want anything that idiot touches. Carol rolled her eyes when she saw that I ignored her. Since Justin is marrying someone else, we might as well make up for his lack of a bachelor party. Let's drink until we drop. Having said that, she tugged Caleb out of the wedding suite and didn't look back. I remained on one knee, my hands suspended midair. My heart felt empty. Just then, I felt a warm, soft hand resting gently on mine. Instinctively, I looked up to meet Layla's gaze, a soft smile slowly gracing her lips when she looked at me. Layla's voice was soft but exceptionally clear when she murmured, "I will." I was somewhat surprised. For some reason, although Layla seemed dull and dim-witted, the eyes that looked back at me were clear and bright. Yet, this was a fleeting thought I did not dwell on. Gently, I coaxed Layla, saying, "Since you've agreed, we still need to go to the city hall. It only counts if we get a marriage certificate." I paused, looking into her eyes. "This isn't a game," I said earnestly. "Are you absolutely certain?" Layla didn't answer. She merely clapped her hands happily. I couldn't help but smile bitterly when I saw how genuinely happy she was. The next day, I drove Layla to the city hall. Throughout the process, Layla encountered multiple issues. During the signing, she held the pen clumsily, finally managing to scrawl out her name in uneven letters. She also found the red ink pad fascinating when offering her thumbprint. Not only did she get it all over her hands, but she accidentally smeared it on my cheek, too. Layla smiled at her reflection in the mirror, thinking she looked like a kitten. Soon, we were given 2 copies of the marriage certificates. Layla held her marriage certificate, her eyes sparkling as she cradled the document like a precious treasure, refusing to let go. I called my driver as soon as we left the building. Gently, I patted her head and murmured, "Why don't you leave with the driver first? I have some things to take care of and will be back soon." Layla looked at me in bemusement, but she nodded obediently. I went the opposite way and headed to the bar alone. When I stepped into the private room, only Carol and Caleb remained. She was carefully wiping his mouth with a damp towel, and his collar bore traces of vomit stains. If memory served, Carol was a real stickler for cleanliness. I once had a cold so bad that I couldn't help it and accidentally threw up on the sheets. Carol's first instinct upon waking up was to berate me while pinching her nose in disgust. "Justin, that is disgusting. Can't you throw up in the bathroom?" In the end, I forced myself to endure the discomfort and change the sheets, while she didn't offer a single word of concern. She went over to Caleb's that very night. Yet, Carol remained utterly oblivious to the obvious filth on Caleb's body right now. Caleb recovered slightly, his drunken gaze glazed over as he grinned at me. "Weren't you saying you'd marry the half-wit? Or are you having second thoughts already?" Carol did not stop her ministrations but silenced him gently. "Shut it, Caleb." She finally glanced at me. "I reckon you've already learnt your lesson," she said flatly. "I won't hold it against you. I'll make up for the wedding in a few days. Right now, I need to send Caleb back. He's had too much to drink." At the sight of her concern for Caleb, contrasting with the indifference she'd shown me, I felt a dull ache pierce through the part of my heart that I thought had already frozen over. The last bit of affection I had for her had finally vanished. I nodded, pulling out my copy of the marriage certificate. "That's up to you, but there's no need to make up for the wedding. I've already married Layla." Carol's face turned ashen when she saw the document in my hands. "Are you kidding me, Justin? You actually went ahead and married that half-wit?" she exclaimed. "You must be out of your mind to do something like this. If word gets out, how am I supposed to show up in public?" Up until now, she only cared about appearances. After all, if word got out that the esteemed CEO of Leeds Group had married a half-wit instead of her, the ridicule she'd have to endure was boundless. Caleb sneered drunkenly, his words slurring. "I really have to hand it to you, going to such lengths just to spite Carol. Embarrassing yourself is one thing. Why drag her into this?" Hearing this made me think of how ridiculous the situation was. After all, they were the ones who wanted Layla and me to spend the night together. When I said I wanted to marry Layla, Carol didn't say a word. But now, it was my fault. After he spoke, Caleb suddenly threw up again, the vomit splattering right onto Carol's sleeve. She yelped in surprise, but instead of pushing him away, she frantically scanned the surroundings. The private room was out of tissues. Her gaze landed on me as she anxiously said, "Where's that handkerchief of yours? Hand it over." I was stunned. The handkerchief was the one she had hand-embroidered when we first got together, with our initials stitched onto it. She once said this was her token of affection for me, asking me to keep it on me every day. All these years, I had treasured it, keeping it with me at all times. Yet, now, she asked for something so precious to help clean Caleb up. I felt my heart shatter into a million pieces. After a moment of silence, I pulled out the handkerchief impassively. Without handing it over, I tossed it at her feet. "Carol, we're done." She bent down to retrieve it, quickly wiping Caleb's mouth again. "It's just a damn handkerchief. Why are you so worked up?" she snapped impatiently. "You can just wash it if it's soiled. Otherwise, I'll embroider you a new one in the future." I ignored her and turned to leave. "In the future," she said. "What future?" Carol was even more enraged by my leaving. "If you want to leave, fine. See if I care. You'll regret it sooner or later. Don't come crawling back to me then." It was late by the time I got back to the mansion. Layla had curled up on the couch and fallen asleep, still clutching the certificate in her arms. I felt my heart melt when I saw this. I tiptoed over, intending to pick her up and carry her to the bedroom. She awoke as if startled, her drowsy gaze lighting up when she realized who I was. "You're back," she murmurs. "Yeah." I smiled as I bent down. "If I come home late in the future, don't wait up for me. Just go to bed if you're tired." After ensuring she was settled in, I returned to my study. Just then, the screen on my phone lit up. Carol had texted me, "Justin, come back and apologize to me now, and I might consider forgiving you. If you want to sulk and cause a scene, go ahead. But don't you dare gross me out by marrying that half-wit." I stared at the screen, my heart feeling completely unmoved. Carol's words, which would have once stirred any emotion in me, now seemed like an eyesore. I didn't reply, choosing to block her instead. My world was now pure once again. Early the next morning, I went out with Layla. All these years, she didn't even have her own phone. I figured that if something happened and I couldn't find her, it would be more convenient for her to have a phone. After getting the number, I casually saved it into my contacts. When adding a name to the details, I paused before solemnly typing in the word wifey. Just as we were about to leave, we bumped into Carol and Caleb at the entrance to the mall. Carol's sharp gaze raked over our entwined hands before finally settling on my face. She was fuming and amused in equal measure as she spoke. Have you gotten hooked on playing house, parading this thing around town? Aren't you worried about bringing shame onto the Leeds family? Caleb chimed in flippantly. Justin, give it a rest. Carol's no longer angry. Just lower your head, and this will blow over. Move aside. I'm going to pick out a wedding dress with my wife. I cut them off abruptly, my voice unfazed. Carol completely lost it when she heard me addressing Layla so affectionately. Have you forgotten how desperately you begged me to be with you, Justin? How you swore I was the only one for you? How long do you plan on keeping up this charade? Are you really giving up on me? I glanced at her coldly. Indeed, I don't want you anymore, I replied impassively. I watched as her face lost all its color. Shielding Layla, we brushed past them and walked away. 3 days later, Layla and I held our wedding as planned. As expected, Carol showed up. Not only did she bring along Caleb and her lackeys, but she also invited the press. Layla and I hadn't invited anyone to our wedding at first, but the event space was now filled with people. Before Carol could speak, the reporters swarmed forward. Mr. Leeds, have you considered how badly Ms. Barnes would have been affected by you marrying someone who has developmental disabilities? Carol stood behind the reporter, feigning a look of hurt and helplessness as she cried, I know you're still upset at me, Justin, but how could you? How will I face everyone? Despite being mentally prepared, I was still mortified. Noticing my awkwardness, Carol smirked. She pushed past the reporters and glided over to me. You went through all this just to win me back, didn't you? She asked condescendingly. I won't dwell on it. If you apologize to me sincerely in front of everyone and beg for my forgiveness, I might even reconsider. She raised her chin smugly, as if certain I would yield at the out she had given me. I clenched my fists, feeling the rage burn in me. Just as I was about to retort, a cold voice came from the entrance, cutting through the clamor. Justin and I have already registered our marriage. We're legally wed. The lingering thrill from the unexpected $1,000 tip vanished, replaced by a cold dread that coiled in my stomach. I stood frozen on the pristine steps of that Beverly Hills mansion, the Uber Eats bag dangling forgotten from my hand, as the conversation from inside sliced through me. Scarlett, that idiot Ethan from Brentwood actually believes your legs are paralyzed. A laugh, light and cruel. Oh, completely. I heard the idiot is out there in all weather, delivering food to pay for my experimental surgery. Not just that, the dumbass even sold the heirloom his dead father left him. You have to admit, Ethan treated you pretty well, Scarlett. If he ever finds out you're actually Scarlett Sinclair, heiress to the Sinclair Group, and you've been faking everything, he'd probably just break. Yeah, Scarlett, why him? He was our friend. He's broke, but he's harmless. Then, my girlfriend Scarlett Sinclair's voice, the voice I'd loved, the voice I'd worked myself to the bone for, cut through the rest, cold and clear. A fool like that, that kind of gutter trash. He was born to serve. It's in his blood. It's because of him that Mason couldn't make the Texas State University basketball team. A wave of understanding from the others. Oh, so your paralysis, conveniently, started right after Ethan made the team? Bingo. If Mason couldn't have it, why should he? I did it to get back at him for Mason. Each word was a precise, surgical strike, methodically dismantling the reality I had lived for 3 years. So, she was only with me to help her childhood sweetheart get revenge. So, her paralyzed legs, her tragic background, it was all an elaborate act she'd orchestrated. So, every single vow over the past 3 years, was just hollow, disgusting lies. It seemed I was nothing but a joke, a plaything for her amusement. Numbly, I pulled out my phone. My fingers moved on their own, dialing the number I had sworn I would never call for this reason. Mom, my voice was hollow, the sound of something final breaking. I've lost. I'm ready. Ready to accept my position as heir to the Sterling Group. There was a pause on the other end, then a quiet, and the arranged marriage with the Moons? Yes. The word tasted like ash. I'm ready for that, too. I hung up. As if on cue, Mason's voice drifted out, smug and victorious. Scarlett, you've suffered these past few years, pretending for me. Thank you for everything you've done. Don't worry, the second I'm officially named heir to the Moon Group, I'll make you my wife. Through the slight gap in the door, I saw him. And on his wrist, catching the light, was the bracelet. My father's bracelet. Woven from 9 rare cat's eye stones, the only thing of value the man had ever owned, left to me. And Scarlett had given it to him. Mason, Scarlett murmured, nestling against him. I'll wait for you. And I saw her, standing there, tall in her high heels, her long, perfect legs on full display. Every last illusion shattered. Bang, bang, bang. The force of my knuckles against the heavy oak door echoed in the sudden silence. Every eye in the room snapped towards me. The chatter died instantly, replaced by a stunned, guilty silence. No one expected me to walk in at that moment. Scarlett's eyes widened, a flash of pure panic erasing her composed mask. Ethan, what are you doing here? I didn't even look at her, my gaze fixed on the bracelet, my father's legacy, glowing mockingly on Mason's wrist. It was made of 9 cat's eye stones, felt like a physical weight in my memory. It was my father's most cherished possession, the only tangible piece of him I had left. And now, it adorned the wrist of the man who had orchestrated my ruin. Just an old friend's get-together, Scarlett stammered, the lie pathetic and hollow in the thick silence. But explanation were meaningless now. The world had shifted on its axis. I stared straight at Mason. Give me back the bracelet. Scarlett blinked, thrown. For 3 years, I had hung on her every word. But now, I wouldn't even look at her. It threw her off balance. She took a step toward me, a familiar, pleading tone entering her voice. Ethan, just listen. Listen to what? I cut her off coldly. Listen to how you helped me sell my father's bracelet to Mr. Moon. Or should I listen to the medical miracle of your paralyzed legs healing overnight? Scarlett was rendered speechless. The air in the opulent room crackled with tension. Everyone waited for the show to begin. Mason pulled Scarlett possessively against his side, right in front of me, and deliberately raised his wrist. This old thing? It was a gift from Scarlett. What? You want it back? His eyes were full of open contempt and a gloating challenge. You can have it, but it's mine now. If you want it, pay 50,000 for it. I had expected him to be difficult, but 50 grand? It was an impossible sum. Because of Scarlett, I had severed ties with my family years ago, leaving home with nothing but pride and rage. For years, every cent I earned delivering food went into the black hole of her fake medical treatments. 50 grand? I didn't even have 500 bucks in my bank account. Mason clearly knew it. His smirk was insufferable, utterly confident in my humiliation. A foolish part of me thought Scarlett might speak up. After all, the bracelet was mine. But she remained silent, nestled against him. That final betrayal sank my heart into a cold, dark abyss. I took a sharp, steadying breath. Fine, I'll buy it. I wanted no further connection to Scarlett. I just wanted what was left of my father back. The moment the words left my mouth, Mason burst out laughing. You buy it? Ethan, did I hear that right? He gestured dismissively at me. You could deliver food for a decade and not save 50 grand. What are you going to pay with? Good intentions. And this? Mason pointed at the insulated delivery bag at my feet. This is top-tier Japanese omakase. A single meal costs more than you make in a month. Have you ever even seen real uni? He snatched the bag and shoved it at a hulking bodyguard behind him. Here, take this and feed it to the dogs. After ordering the bodyguard, he turned back to me. See that? That's the difference between us, Ethan. I can treat 10 grand like it's nothing. Trash like you'll spend your whole life scrambling for scraps. You're trash, and trash belongs in the gutter. Mocking laughter erupted from his sycophantic friends. A lousy delivery guy, daring to challenge Mason Moon? What a joke. If this loser can cough up 50 grand, I'll eat my own hat standing on my head. This idiot actually thought Scarlett liked him. Everyone knows Scarlett and Mason are the real deal. Mason basked in his friend's approval, swelling with arrogance. He was enjoying this, savoring every second of my public destruction. Scarlett said this piece of junk might be worth something. Mason sneered, his voice dripping with contempt. But someone like you? What good stuff could you possibly own? Only trash would treasure trash like this. You think I'd actually want it? With a violent jerk, he ripped the bracelet from his wrist and hurled it in a wide arc out the open window. Splash. The sound was sickeningly final. The last piece of my father vanished into the dark, choppy waters of the lake. Something inside me snapped. A raw, guttural roar tore from my throat as I lunged for the window. Ethan. Scarlett's arms wrapped around me, pulling me back with surprising strength. Are you insane? It's just a stupid bracelet. Let go of me, Scarlett. Let go.